Director. Before I start my presentation, I would like to call on my colleagues to join me on stage for this panel discussion. Ms. Janet Landy, Ms. Sue Gannon, and Mr. Kevin Jones. I'm not going to get into much of the detail about those codes. My colleague Jacob Maputa has touched on that. And we've decided to do a joint Q&A session because the development of these codes was done by both the forum and the DTI together with the Department of Arts and Culture. I need to tell you about who we are because I know many of you do not know who the Events Technical and Production Transformation Forum is. This forum is made up of SACI, EXA, SARA, SAMPA, IEFIA, and SACIA. And these are essentially the industries made up of music promoters, theaters, exhibitors, conference organizers, roadies, festivals, technical and AV providers, production crew, etc. throughout the country. Now, the vision of this forum is to have a prosperous event, technical and production services industry that is globally competitive, inclusive, highly skilled, and characterized by shared growth and a strong commitment to human capital and the development of knowledge and skills. I need to tell you how this forum came into existence. Sometime around 2010, Sarah conducted a presentation to the TTI Portfolio Committee in Parliament. They raised various issues. Amongst them was that there was no transformation, or it is happening at a very slow pace. That also the industry is dominated by a few wide-owned companies with the right equipment and technology, and also that there are long-term relationships and trust with promoters and event organizers. Also, that there was a need to bring new black players. There's a need also to transfer skills. That there is a lot of fronting, that also importantly that this industry is not regulated at all. If you will know, there are many charter councils in place. You talk of tourism charter, financial services, energy and so on. But our sector hasn't got that. That's why monitoring and reporting has been a challenge. And of course, you will know that some years ago, specifically around 2003, the government did introduce and develop the BEE codes. Subsequent to that presentation by Sarah at Parliament, the Trade and Industry Minister then established this forum in 2011. The reason why it was established, it was with a purpose to transform and guide the broad-based Black economic empowerment policy. The forum also provides a platform for engagement, information, and experience sharing amongst the stakeholders in the industry. The stakeholders have agreed to participate in the forum alongside government to embark on a process of sector code development. The outcome of this process is to develop an industry transformation plan, as well as agreeing on an approach to BBBE policy compliance and monitoring for the industry. All the forum participants have committed to developing a sector transformation plan aligned to the codes. As far as the role of this council goes, we represent all stakeholders in the sector, and we believe over time, like as I had mentioned earlier, that it will be constituted into a charter council for this sector. And some of its role will be to constitute an executive structure with adequate capacity, to oversee and monitor the implementation of the sector codes, to receive, consider, and approve annual enterprise and supply development BBBE reports, to issue guidance notes on the interpretation and application of the sector codes, to prepare the annual reports on progress in implementing the sector codes. Of course, it will also perform the function of monitoring and reporting, and this will be done through each enterprise submitting their reports annually to the Charter Council. The reports must contain the enterprise scorecard verified by an accredited BEE verification agency and an account of progress in achieving the qualitative undertakings outlined in the sector code. The first annual report will be for the enterprise first full financial year after the effective date of the aligned sector code and must be submitted to the Sector Charter Council within 3 months after request from the office. Once the aligned sector code is gazetted, the sector code will be binding and enforceable, and the verification certificate acquired before the gazetting of the events technical production sector code will remain valid for a period of 12 months. The Charter Council will comprehensively review progress on the implementation of the sector code after a 5-year period from the effective date of the sector code, or the review of the codes of good practice, whichever, of course, will come first. The scope of application of this forum. The forum will apply to the following entities operating in the industry, which derive at least 70% of its total revenue or turnover from the events sector, covering but not limited to sporting, entertainment, recreational, religious, cultural, meetings, conference, exhibitions, incentives, organizational and any other similar activities hosted at a stadium or a venue or within a prescribed area, of course including the virtual online space. In a nutshell, the scope of application will affect the music promoters, theaters, exhibitors, conference organizers, festivals, technical and production service providers, roadies, production crews, etc. And of course, the objectives of the forum are as follows. One important one is to have an increase in the number of black people that own and control assets in the industry. 2, to define the scope, the principles, and the framework in which the industry will be transformed. 3, to introduce new players in the entire value chain of the industry and improvement in the competitiveness and efficiency of the value chain. 4, to facilitate partnerships in the industry amongst other stakeholders groups, including government, labor, civil society, business, etc. 5, to build a very strong, capable of contributing to the NDP, the GDP, and the employment and deployment of skills. As I said, I'm not going to take you through those codes, as I'm aware we have time constraints. I was actually requested to do this presentation tomorrow morning because of time. And we will be here to discuss with the rest of the panel to take more questions. What my colleague Jacob had presented earlier, it's basically the same BE codes, except for the fact that these are specific to our sectors. There has been minor adjustments and changes in relation to the codes for this sector. And I want to stop here.